All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get things started here. Karen's ready to go. Thank you all for coming today to our social media lecture and how to basically take your personal branding and use your social media to get people to really get a good impression of you. Just to kind of go over Karen's expertise and what she's done in the past. She spent 11 years teaching now at the University of Montana. Right now she's teaching a class that's integrated marketing, right? Integrated online marketing.
The name of it, again. Integrated online marketing, I think it is.
Okay. And she has 10 years experience in marketing management, including the Texas Lottery, which she has a lot of great stories from there, a lot of good experience. And how much did you help grow that? Quite a bit, like a couple.
We got it to be the biggest lottery in the U.S. and the fourth largest in the world.
Yeah, there we go. That's pretty good. And she just recently sold a company that she'd had for a while called Skinny Dip Candles. They're nice, scentsy, relaxing massage candles. And she recently just sold that business. And now she's, like I said, teaching at the university and then also teaching a lifelong extended opportunity with some people that aren't actually, going to school, but she does use the resources here so they can gain credit and learn how to use social media. But just to kind of go over what she's going over right now, like I say, personal branding online, really important aspect if you're trying to find a job, which I'm sure everybody is here to learn and eventually find a job. So,
well, thank you very much for having me this afternoon. I'm going to keep this kind of to a minimum what I'm going to formally present because I really want this to be interactive. And I know that a lot of you already know how to use social media. I really don't think I need to go into that piece of it, although there are a few, little tidbits and nuances about some of the social media. And just a few tips I want to pass out along the way that I think will be really helpful for you. So are most of you in a position right now of probably trying to find jobs more than anything? How many of you would say you're job hunting online and that's your primary focus right now as far as using social media for that? Are some of you looking to take your position as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, or anything like that to another level to where you want to become more of an authority in a field? Because there's some of you wanting to do that too. So good. Let's kind of just know who's in the room then. Because social media will let you do either or both. And that's helpful for me to know right at the front end so I know how to gear things. But as Austin said, I've done some entrepreneurial things myself. I've had great experiences. I've had some not great experiences, but I've always learned a lot, whatever I've done. And I've also done the corporate side, and then after doing that for a number of years, decided that I really wanted to come back to Montana and work primarily with small businesses, because that's where my heart is and my roots are here in Montana. So what I wanted to do was first just kind of introduce the fact that we're going to be talking about several online tools today. Most of these would be considered social media, but a couple of them not maybe as much as others. I'm sure all of you recognize names on the list: the Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Those would be considered social media. And then I've got three others on the list that some people throw into social media camps and others will put in their own categories. But those are also blogging, using video, and podcasting. So I'll be just briefly talking about those because they do kind of enter the mix as far as building online credibility. But out of the ones that I have listed there for social media specifically, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, who can tell me which one's the oldest? Anybody know? Which one started first? The first 5 on the list, down through Pinterest. You can see I'm probably standing right in your way over there.
Is it LinkedIn?
It was LinkedIn. LinkedIn and MySpace came about in 2003, right about the same time. And it's been a much slower grower than some of the others. However, LinkedIn is really interesting because it's really coming into its own. And in the last 2-3 years, they've added some fantastic features, and LinkedIn is kind of, it's definitely a unique tool that has some different nuances to it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all of these on this screen here for just a minute because it's going to tie in to my next screen. One of the things that we'll be talking about in just a minute is how do you manage all this stuff, because when people start talking social media, probably the biggest concern that I hear from people is, oh my God, it's such a time suck. And it is. If you've done social media and you've tried to do anything with it seriously, it's one, real easy to get distracted. So when you're using it for a purpose like to get hired, to build your personal brand online, or to manage a business social media presence at some point, if some of you do that, the important thing to remember is you need to shut off the distraction factor and just kind of make that mental switch in your head and just say, I'm here to do business. I'm not going to get sidetracked by going to read this latest, greatest post that somebody put and then follow that little trail, and pretty soon you're off reading blogs and doing all kinds of things that you're not there to do. So we will talk a little bit about some other tips I've got for you in a few minutes. But one of the things outside of that is the fact that people have this compelling feeling that I need to be doing all of these. I'm going to be missing somebody or something if I'm not doing all the social media. And there's really nothing that could be further from the truth. You should really pick the 2, maybe 3 on the outside things that you want to do on this list, and really learn how to do those things well. And then as you figure out if you've got time or need to expand your circles, go on and do some other things. So just a couple of kind of tips, just kind of clearing out what the perceptions might be on some of these media on this list here right at the top. Facebook, I know you all know, and I know you all know that there's Facebook business pages and there's Facebook personal pages. I think pretty much everybody knows how to use Facebook, so I'm not going to go into that. However, if you are running a Facebook personal page, which most of you are, and you are job hunting, it's going to be really, really important that you, and I'm sure you all know this, I don't need to say a whole lot about this, but kind of clean it up a bit and make sure that you've got things that may be too much personal on there, moved away, so that when people come in, they're going to see you, and they're going to see you as a real person. There's nothing that'll scare an employer away as if all of your profiles are set to private. I have a lot of people say, well, can't I just set everything to private and then they can't see all that stuff? Well, yeah, you can, but what do you think goes through an employer's head when they go and they see everything set to private? It's like, what the heck are they trying to hide? So I don't recommend going that route. But employers are now using social media to do some of their job filtering. And I know I sat on 2 search committees at the university here last year, as well as helped hire someone in a management position off campus as part of just a screening committee. And in all of those cases, they used social media as a filter. So you would get to a certain point of the screening process after you had gone through all the resumes and what have you, and what they would do at that point is divvy it up and have different people assigned to go in and look at the social media and to basically do an online search for these people's names to see what they could uncover. And what they were, looking for is to make sure that what they found online was consistent with what was on the resume. If somebody said, I was an expert in this, well, they wanted to see expertise in that. And I know in a couple cases, just to give you an example of a couple things that were turned up, is we had somebody talking about what an excellent website builder they were and so on and so forth, and we went and looked at some websites they had built that were actually listed on their site, and they looked like they hadn't been maintained in years. Now, at one point, they may have been really exceptional sites, but it certainly raised red flags. It's like if this person's putting their best foot forward and that's what they're showcasing, it really raised some huge question marks. So you just want to make sure that everything that you're using on social media or online anywhere, which is why I call this online and not just social media, one leads to the other. And if you're talking about things in your social media that may lead them to other things online about you, you need to be concerned about those things too. So just beware that all of that kind of comes around. Now, do any of you manage Facebook pages right now for businesses? Pages are a little different, aren't they? You have to have a profile to have a page. And again, I'm not going to share the ins and outs of setting up pages, but if some of you are looking to gain credibility in your field of expertise at some point when the time is right and you think you have enough credibility through the various things you're doing online, you may want to set yourself, other than just a personal page on Facebook, have a business page for yourself as a public figure, as somebody who speaks, who does workshops, who does training, who is an expert, in whatever field and however they want to do that. So I throw that out because Facebook does have that business side that many of you may not have had experience with as yet. And that's a whole nother realm. There are separate rules to play with there. But it's another great tool for you to potentially use if it's the right kind of tool for you to use. Facebook is the big kahuna. Right now there's 1.2 billion Facebook users. Some of the younger demographic is moving away from Facebook, but it's very, very strong from the mid to late 20s on up into, I'm not even sure where it cuts off these days. Obviously, it skews, and you know, there's a point at some point where it peaks, but the highest growth right now is in the 54 plus market, 55 plus market. So that's where they're still picking up users on Facebook. Some of the younger people are dropping out, but not in droves. They're still using Facebook, but they're also picking up Instagram, and Twitter is where they're primarily going. High school kids are using Snapchat a lot, but that's not a social media platform I'd recommend for job hunting anyway. Twitter. Twitter can be great. Twitter doesn't give you the best opportunity to really showcase what I would say your best stuff most of the time. You're so limited in what you can say on Twitter. Not telling you not to use it, but just recognize it'll only take you so far. You're so limited in what you can say. Twitter is best used in combination with another social platform that will let you say more than 140 character tweets. So if you're going to use Twitter, I would use it in combination with something else so that you're not just always truncating just to those little quick tweets that aren't going to really let you position yourself as well as some of the other media might. Google Plus is coming along. This is Google's third attempt at a social network. They've been so successful everywhere else, and this is Google's big embarrassment. So they're really trying hard to make sure that Google Plus flies. In fact, they're going so far as to kind of forcing you into Google Plus. If you want to use some of the other tools that they offer, they've recently changed a lot of that to where now you have to have a Google Plus account to be able to access some of their other more popular tools. That said, not everybody's going to be an active Google Plus user, but there are some people that are starting to realize that, hey, Google Plus offers some pretty cool features. Google Plus is leaning right now much heavily more toward men than women. Not saying women shouldn't use it, but it's about 68% men. Tends to be more highly educated than, say, Facebook does. Tends also to be a little bit more technologically oriented than some of the other social media platforms. So if you're in that tech field, financial fields, male-dominated fields, and more higher educated market, Google Plus is one that might be a really good fit for you. LinkedIn is great for anybody that is looking for a job. So if you are job hunting, you should be on LinkedIn. If you're trying to gain an authority presence anywhere online, you really should be on LinkedIn. That's where people will likely go to check first because it is seen as the serious B2B platform, if you will. Now, a couple things about LinkedIn before we move on. Please, if you have questions, just let me know along the way. You have a profile on LinkedIn. You have an ability to have a profile on LinkedIn that is a public profile and the profile that if you're connected to somebody, they can see everything. Again, I'm going to trust that everybody here knows how to go look up, how do I make sure I've got my public profile set up. But it's really important that you have your public profile set up, because if not, somebody looking for somebody with your skill sets won't be able to see your whole profile and summary and all of your connections and endorsements unless they're already connected with you. So you need to make sure that your public profile is set to visible and that you've got it completely filled out. And then the regular profile is obviously the one people are most familiar with, but a lot of folks don't know that you need to make sure that that's set to public. How many of you did not know that you had to do that? Yeah, usually surprise a few people. And some people are going, oh, I had no idea. So hopefully that's a good tip right there. LinkedIn is also great if you want to be connected to people that you have not yet been introduced to. Most of you are familiar with, you have layers of people in LinkedIn that you can connect to down through the pipeline. And if you're not yet connected, what they call first level, meaning you're one-on-one connected, you can be asked to be introduced by somebody who knows the two of you, a mutual connection. And that's why growing your network large is very helpful, because the larger your network, the more likely you'll be able to have somebody in between you and who you want to meet that could be a connection. Here's a tip I want to share with you on LinkedIn that very few people know. If you see that someone is a member of a group, are you all familiar with LinkedIn groups? I maybe should ask that question first. You can go in and explore groups in LinkedIn. If you're going across the top in your profile, I don't remember what the tab's called. Click them all and you'll find one that has groups as a drop down. And you can literally go into LinkedIn and find groups on everything under the sun. So if you're interested in a certain kind of finance, running a certain kind of store, if you do business-to-business sales to certain kinds of businesses, you can find groups. You can find University of Montana alumni groups on LinkedIn. You can find business school alumni on LinkedIn. And the list goes on and on and on. So let me just show you, this is a kind of a random example, but just to show you the power of this. Last year I was working with this fellow from a small town in Montana who was making a very, very unique product. And when I say very unique, he was making cremation urns out of hand-carved logs. Now, how many people do you suppose are going on Google typing in, I'm looking for a hand-carved log cremation urn? You know, you're just not going to get traffic that way. And his biggest sales success had been going basically door to door, knocking on funeral homes and talking to funeral home directors and crematorium directors and showing them his product. And they were all extremely impressed. But when you're from a state like Montana, I mean, you could spend days and months and probably years getting in your car doing one-on-one visits, and you would far, exceed your payback in expense. There just wouldn't be the ROI in it. So when we were working together, I said, let's go see what kind of groups are on LinkedIn. And we went in, and within a matter of 5 minutes, we found 3 groups of people that were funeral home directors, were involved in the crematorium business, and the other group had something to do with gravestones, cremation urns, that kind of thing. And so by him then becoming a part of those groups, he could see what the questions were, get engaged in the conversation. He started picking up some new clients that way. So that's one key thing. You can find people in your field that belong to groups, and a great way if you're job hunting to use those kinds of fields is to ask good questions. You don't ever want to go in and be real blatant and just like, hey, I'm job hunting, who do you know? I know none of you would do that, but you are always, I shouldn't say always, but in most cases, really well received if you go in and say something like, I've been studying for several years, I'm ready to graduate, I'm very interested in XYZ. What advice would you give someone in my shoes as the #1 thing they could do to improve their chances of getting hired in today's market? That's a very general question. You're not saying hire me, you're not pushing anything in their face, and you'd be surprised how many people are really willing to help a sincere person asking a sincere question. If they're impressed enough, many times that will go to further engagement, further conversation. Someone might ask to see your resume, that type of thing, but it really helps if you're in the right groups to begin with. So that can work really well. I've joined a couple of gift shop groups in the past because of my candle business, and would see people asking questions about wholesale versus retail, and what do you do if you want to sell a product both wholesale and retail, and what kind of laws and things do you need to walk? I mean, I was perfect to answer those questions. I had walked in their shoes, and by simply asking questions, then that led to a couple of people saying, hey, I didn't know you did that other stuff too. Maybe you'd like to do a website for me, or whatever it is. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door. And here's the tip that I was going to give you in addition to that. If you, person A, wants to connect with person B and you're not first level connections, you have to ask for an introduction, unless you're in the same group. If you're in the same group, you connect with them one-on-one, and you don't have to go trying to find somebody to introduce you. You just want to make sure that you do it in a very professional way and don't come across as being too terribly eager, spammy, Go into the cocktail party and shove a business card in someone's face analogy. But you can definitely approach people that are in a group. You just have to come up with a creative, very professional way to do it. So LinkedIn is a great resource.
I guess I'm wondering if you have guidelines on LinkedIn etiquette that way, because sometimes I've heard people say that you should not attempt to connect with somebody that you've never met in person, or people will attempt to connect to me and I've never met them before, but if I have several friends in common, maybe I'll accept them. Are there guidelines that you use to determine?
There's
diluting your network.
Exactly. There's really not guidelines per se, but here's what I would say from experience. I think you're very smart to tread the waters carefully. I wouldn't join a group for the sole purpose of trying to connect with person B right away and just, join the group and immediately hit them up for something. That would not be seen very favorably. However, if you go in and follow person B inside LinkedIn, see them making some comments on things, it would be a great place to kind of get that introduction started by you making comments on their comments, thanking them for their insights, whatever, so where they may recognize you from participating in conversations they're also in. And then after you've established a presence that way and maybe commented several times, then to ask a question to them directly may not seem to be out of place at all. So usually it's kind of getting in and learning the lay of the land a little bit before you just go in and boom, I want to ask you a question directly. Most of the time, again, I can't speak for everybody, but for the most part, I have found LinkedIn to be a pretty accepting environment. And if people use, I hate to say it because not all people have it, but I think those of you in this room do. If you use some common sense, it generally will carry you a long way. You just don't want to go in and do anything that you wouldn't do if you were going into a social setting and be obnoxious. Just use that same kind of decorum. Ease in gently, get to know what they're doing, kind of evaluate the lay of the land, and then ease yourself in gracefully, and it'll usually work just fine. Yeah?
I find that if I'm going to reach out to somebody that I haven't physically met, that I have a connection to, that when I send my request, I state why, or I say 2 lines as to why I want to connect, because if somebody connects with me and I've never met them.
Exactly. You want to know why are they wanting to connect with you. Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you are connecting with anybody on LinkedIn to grow your network, you always want to use the connections where you customize the little introduction. Don't just click the button that sends them the little static message that says, "Hi, I'd like to be your connection on LinkedIn." That's so impersonal. If it's somebody you know really well, it's not a big deal. But there are some automated ways in LinkedIn to help you connect, and if you click those buttons, it'll usually just send out those very generic messages. If you're trying to connect with people that maybe don't know you really well, maybe there's somebody you met at a networking event, you were impressed with, you're not sure they'll remember you. I have had great success, as have most people, simply using the little personalized link request to go in and, sometimes, LinkedIn is changing all the time too, and they've recently changed some of the protocol as to when they'll let you say, I know this person from this source, and make a connection, and when they'll say you have to have their email address or something. But assuming they let you in and make the connection, what you would want to do is say something like, hello, John, or hello, Mr. Graves, whatever you're comfortable with. I recently met you at the XYZ event at the University of Montana. I'm very interested in this field and would love to have you as a connection on LinkedIn. And they go, oh, University of Montana, I spoke at that event. I probably shook hands with this person. They may even recognize you from your photo, because a lot of times they'll go look at your profile. And 9 times out of 10, they'll click accept. LinkedIn, most people are really good. It's way different than Facebook, where people are like, oh, I really only want to talk to my family, or I really only want my inner circle. LinkedIn is there to make connections in the business community. So most people are pretty gracious about accepting connections if they know who you are. And I get some all the time that have the little shadow person because there's no photo, and you go to their profile to see who is this person, and the profile has 2 sentences on it, and they live in New York, and I'm like, what are they doing? Just collecting names on LinkedIn? I don't accept those, but if I think there's a possibility that I know someone and they want a connection, or if I see they're from the University of Montana, I'll pretty much always connect with those people. And then if I do get somebody saying, hey, I saw you're connected with so-and-so, you know, can you speak to their expertise in this field? If it's someone I don't know well enough to do that, one of the things that I will do is I'll just say, you know, I don't know them that well with regard to that particular skill set, but we have a mutual friend that does. Let me connect the two of you, or whatever. And most people are totally fine with that. So don't ever go above and beyond and start recommending people you really don't know things about, and don't endorse people if you don't know they're good at things. But if you do, then that's exactly what those tools are there to say, yes, I endorse this person for this. Or if you get a call. I recently got contacted by a former U of M student living in another market who had another U of M recent graduate come to them, and they said, I saw that you were connected to this person on LinkedIn. What can you tell me about them as a person? And I said, well, it's been several years, but they were in my class. I remember them very favorably. So let me know if you've got some specifics on things. I'll help out any way I can, or see if I can connect you to people that know more about them in that particular area. And they were like absolutely thrilled. And I even took time to connect back with them. So it works pretty well most of the time. I really like LinkedIn a lot. Pinterest. I'll tell you, Pinterest right now, first of all, you have to be very visually oriented on Pinterest. If your business or what you're doing isn't highly visual, it's probably not a good fit, because that's what Pinterest is about. Pinterest is also skewing 2/3 female, but here's the kicker. Even though 1/3 of Pinterest users are male, the female users use Pinterest 5 times as much. So it's really skewed to women when you look at it that way. It also tends to skew to weddings, to fashion, to shopping, to babies, and to recipes. So if you're in any of those niches, it's golden. If you're not, that's probably not the best social platform for you to spend your time on. And again, there's always people finding new ways to break in and make a social network work, so I don't ever want to say never, but it probably wouldn't be my first choice, let's put it that way. Blogging, again, isn't truly a social media per se, but some people do find it helpful to put up at least a mini website with a few pages about themselves, and then maybe blog about whatever field they're in, just their job hunting experience. Maybe they've got a passion on a particular kind of project. They're involved in a nonprofit, or they're involved in whatever it might be. Those kinds of tools may not be helpful to you. Again, you have to use some common sense here. But blogging can be a wonderful way for people to see, especially if you're tying into an area of expertise with your blog, for you to give more thoughtful information and for you to have more substantive information than you could ever put in any social media post. So it may not be appropriate for all of you as far as your intended field and having expertise in that field down the road, but for those of you looking to gain a presence or authority presence, blogging is something that would be highly recommended. If you're doing blogging, you definitely want to be on Google+ and take advantage of what they call the authorship functionality. You all familiar with that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever gone through a Google search and you will see somebody's picture show up alongside of one of the organic Google results? That's what happens when you have a Google+ profile and you have tied your Google+ profile picture to your blog platform. Anytime you're posting under your name, it'll link the two up, and that's how you get those pictures to show up. They've done a lot of research to show that if you are, say, blogging and you're coming up in Google results, even if you're like spot 7 or 8 on the page, if somebody's scrolling, they will almost always click the blogs with the people that have pictures. It's more credibility, and it just says, oh, there's a real person behind this blog. It's not just a page of information. So that can really do wonders to getting your blog posts opened when you're at the point to where you are blogging. So that's a tip for those of you that think you might want to blog. Definitely want to be on Google+ and get your authorship profile set up and tied to your blog. You can just Google how to do that. If you're on a WordPress platform, it's real easy with just a plug-in and a couple of steps. Videos, podcasting have their own unique place. And again, I kind of throw those out as asides because for the right people in the right fields of expertise, I know some people that have really made a name for themselves doing tutorial videos in their field and putting them on YouTube. And then drawing a lot of attention to, hey, I just put up a new free YouTube tutorial on this particular project or how to do X, Y, Z. And they've built a tremendous following by just doing YouTube videos. So if it's something that lends itself to video, by all means, YouTube or Vimeo, whichever platform you prefer, can be another great tool to use just to get your expertise out there in a wider sphere. Same with podcasting, although it's not quite as popular as video.
Do you have any stats on, for those last three? So if you wanted to establish an author presence out there doing something, which ones are growing the fastest or have the best opportunity? I've heard some people who are longtime bloggers say that if they were starting now, they'd start video.
You know, there is definitely some, I mean, video is already huge, but it is growing. And I'll tell you the plus about video that we don't really have time to talk about at great lengths. But just to kind of give you a real quick overview of search engine optimization, if you're trying to get a web page or anything found in the search engines, Google's where it's at because it gets 2/3 of the search, more than 2/3. Right now it's at 68.4%. I just happened to read that last night. All US search goes through Google. Roughly 17% goes through Bing, roughly 11% goes through Yahoo, and the remaining 4 to 5% is through Ask and a few others. So Google's the big kahuna. Guess who owns YouTube? Google. So if you post on YouTube, and there is some methodology you would want to study up on, but if you post video and you learn how to optimize your video, I know some folks that are totally kicking it, getting their videos to rank on the first page of Google when they're having a tough time getting regular web pages to rank. And it's because Google loves video, and if you know how to optimize that video, it can really do wonderful things in getting you found. So I would tend to say that just asking me that question, I would use LinkedIn just because it's where people expect to find you. I'd probably put some focus on video pretty heavy duty. And that's not to say the others aren't worthwhile, but there is truth to the video thing in particular. It's huge. Some sanity management tips. I've already mentioned this one. Don't even try to do it all. I was guilty of that. When I first started social media, I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to do Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and set up a Pinterest page and do everything. And pretty soon I was so overwhelmed I wasn't doing any of it. And then I let everything set for months and months and months on end, and truly just got back into it. I mean, this is really kind of sad. Here I'm really admitting all my dirty laundry. It's not what I do, it's what I say, folks. If you go look at my website right now, you will see I'm just now getting back into blogging after a long lapse. I'm just now getting back into Facebook and Twitter and haven't even started up LinkedIn at this point. But it's because, one, I have clients, I always come first, and two, when you take on too much, you don't do anything, and that's what happened to me. So now I tell people that I work with, don't make that same mistake. Pick one, pick two, at the outside, pick three. Work on those, get them up and running, hire an assistant if you have to, depending on whether that makes sense or not, before you take on others, because there's just no way to stay on top of all of it if you don't have some tricks up your sleeve. So you may have some success using a tool like the one I mentioned here at the bottom of this screen called Hootsuite. It's a tool, there's a free version and there's a fairly inexpensive paid version, but it will let you manage Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google Plus all at the same time. And it'll even let you say, hey, I've created a 140 character post I think would work great on Twitter. I want to go ahead and post that over on LinkedIn, and I want to also post it on Google Plus. You can do that with Hootsuite. Now you have to be careful, because sometimes what you're posting on Facebook wouldn't be what you would want to post somewhere else, or vice versa. So you have to think about every post you're using, but when you're doing things for branding reasons and trying to get your expertise out there, sometimes that works really, really slick. And Hootsuite, I haven't used it just recently. I've been trying some other things and testing some things. Austin, did you say you use Hootsuite? Do you use it?
We use it for a little bit.
It does let you schedule in advance, though, correct? You can schedule everything in advance.
You can schedule stuff to do on the same day, like tomorrow.
Yeah. Because when I use it, I know, and I'm sure they haven't taken that functionality away, that's why people use it. There's a couple other tools that do the same thing I've been using recently just to kind of test some things out. But what's beautiful about it is you can sit down and you can do, for example, a whole week's worth of posts on Sunday afternoon when you're in the mindset. And you can schedule all of your posts through the week. Now, what you want to do if you're going to do that, though, is you're going to want to go back inside and check to make sure that you haven't had people commenting, ask you questions periodically. So even though you've done your posting for the week, you don't want to let people sit there if they've written you back or asked you a question or wanted to engage. That kind of negates the purpose of being on social media. So you do want to check in at least once a day to make sure that there's not anything requiring a response. But I don't know if you're like me, I can get in the groove and kind of sit down. For some reason, Sundays are the day I do that. And in 2 hours, I can pound out a lot of stuff and get stuff posted for several accounts I manage, as well as my own stuff on a Sunday afternoon. And then other than going back in and checking it during the week, I'm done. Much easier than going, oh God, it's Tuesday. I need to think of what I'm going to post today. So that's a really good tip, just for a management tip there for you. A couple of rules, and they're really not rules, but somebody was asking me about tips or guidelines, protocol, that kind of thing. Be authentic, be social, be focused, be constantly creating content, and be willing to pay it forward. So let me just share with you what those all mean. Be authentic, first of all, means know who you are. You know who you are, what your personality is. You probably also know some things that can get you in trouble. And you want to be authentic, but you want to use common sense. And so there's a time and place to use your witty sarcasm, and when you're trying to build a network and job hunt, probably not that time. However, that doesn't mean you should become a stuffed shirt so stiff on social media that you no longer feel like you're the same person. You just may need to bring it down a notch from what you normally do, but still let your personality show through. You do need to know how others perceive you too. And sometimes that's just simply a matter of asking some close friends or people, colleagues that you do business with, hey, take a look at my social media stuff. Does it reflect who I am, or am I coming across way too preachy, lectury, know-it-all-ish, or whatever it might be? And ask them for their genuine feedback, and most of the time they'll give it to you. And I know sometimes I've had people tell me that, geez, you explain things really well, but it comes across as being so stiff that I don't really see it being very engaging. You need to be more of yourself. You're more laid back, open it up and kind of talk to people like you would be talking to them one-on-one. And I thought, that's really good advice. So I'm trying to do that more. Correct any disconnects between the two that are above. And then I just put the bottom. Be yourself. I actually saw this quote last week and I thought it was great. Everybody else is taken. Be yourself. You're not ever going to step into someone else's shoes and do exactly what they did. Do any of you here know Mary Ellen Campbell? Some of you know her. My very first teaching job here at the University of Montana was a last-minute substitution for Mary Ellen Campbell, who had won the Campus Best Professor Award the year before. And here, going into fall semester 1986, these students had all signed up for Mary Ellen Campbell's class, and guess who they got? Me. And I mean, I about drove myself crazy the first part of that first quarter that I taught, thinking, oh my God, I'm not Mary Ellen Campbell. And somebody gave me the best advice. They said, you're not Mary Ellen. Quit trying to be Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen's Mary Ellen. She was your mentor. That's great. Take what you learned and put your spin on it. And guess what? It worked out fine. So, you just need to keep that in mind. It's great to have mentors and people you look up to, but still be yourself. Don't think you need to be somebody you're not. Be social. Here's a really good rule of thumb for any social media. The 4-to-1 rule. If you're posting on social media, you never want to post anything salesy, pitchy. If it's help me find a job, if it's buy my latest flavor of XYZ, whatever it might be, those kinds of posts should only happen once every 4 posts. You need to mix up your content so that it's more social. Try to keep it related so that you're not posting all over the map on crazy things that people are going, where is this person? What are they? I don't understand what they're doing here. But if you keep it related, example, I've got a gal who does energy efficient window coverings that will, increase the R value of a window tremendously. And trying to pitch, all she was putting on the social media page was, order your next, we've got sale, now we've got new fabric in, we've got this, we've got that. Every single one of them was buy the product, buy the product, buy the product, buy the product. So we started posting things like, here's where your home loses energy. Here's a tip for preventing air leaks around, a window or a door or a bathtub or wherever it might be. By the way, did you hear how cold it was here in Montana? Shared some fun stats about, hey, we're in Montana, what's it like where you are? And people actually jumped in and said, hey, here's what it's like where we are. We actually got some social engagement going. Keep it related so that you're not just all of a sudden saying, hey, watched a great television program the other night, laughed my ass off. I saw somebody do that the other day, and I'm like, no, that's not what we mean by getting too social. You don't want to totally go random and talk about an episode of The Simpsons. But you can stay related in your realm and think, what would people looking for energy efficient homes look like? Chat about things they would be interested in hearing about. HGTV, This Old House, those kinds of television shows. Those would be great things to chat about. Hey, saw a great tip on, this particular program the other day. Thought I'd pass it on. You can find it on Netflix or whatever. Keep in mind, social is social. It's not a trade show. And that's where a lot of people have trouble, because especially if you're using social media as a marketing tool, it's hard to get out of the mindset of traditional marketing, where you always crafted the message a specific way and broadcast it out. When we're on social media, you don't have a captive audience that you're broadcasting to. It's a social interaction, and if you just use that same old one-way communication, they will tune out, drop out, and just quit paying attention to you, if not outright just blocking you very, very quickly. So you just need to keep in mind, it's not a trade show, it's a social function. Be focused. Focus on your interests, your expertise. Know your fit. Where do you fit into that whole realm? Do not try to be all things to all people. Now, this is hard. If you're going in and you're trying to look for work and you want your profile to talk about everything you've ever done, keep in mind this though. What LinkedIn does, if you're using LinkedIn and you're putting your profile up on LinkedIn, LinkedIn looks at what words are in your profile, and that's how they decide to bring up those little suggestive boxes that would say, do you endorse Karen in social media? Do you endorse Karen in XYZ? If you have a whole random group of things, so you have financial management, and then you had a part-time job while you were in college on dog grooming, you might end up having people saying, well, you want to endorse Julie for her personal finance skills? Do you want to, endorse Julie on how she grooms a poodle? And people kind of go, what? So you really want to think, and I suggest to people when they're using LinkedIn, to kind of put some of those part-time jobs or ones that you don't really want to focus on anymore, just put something like worked a number of part-time jobs to put self through school, something that shows your work ethic and shows that you did those things. They'll always ask you if they're serious for a resume, and then you can expand on that either in the interview or in the resume, however you choose to do it. But don't fill up your LinkedIn profile with stuff that isn't related to where it is you want to go. That's how they're going to sort and sift and find you. Search for keywords, hashtags, and groups that locate conversations that are a good fit. And that's pretty much true across all of the social media. Whichever social media you're in, if you're in Twitter, you can go search keywords, you can search hashtags. You can do the same thing in Facebook now that Facebook's using hashtags. You certainly can do that on LinkedIn. Any of those groups, you can find people that are hooked up in different areas, and you can find groups on Facebook and on LinkedIn too. Try to join some of those groups, see what's going on, see if you can engage in the dialogue. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that, I don't know the statistic anymore, but it's still pretty high that about, I want to say it's like 60% of all people find jobs through someone they know or a personal connection of some kind, rather than answering a blind ad, answering, monster.com listings, that kind of thing. So the more people that you can connect with, even if they're not personal friends, we're not suggesting that's where they come with, but if you can get an introduction to someone who works here or works there, that's going to get you a lot farther than trying the old-fashioned respond to a want ad type listing. I see a hand, or was somebody just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody? Constantly create new content. Frequency and consistency are the key, and this is why it's important to just pick what you can handle. Now again, there is no absolute rule of thumb mandate where you must post so often. Not at all. However, if you're going to consistently do it for the purpose of building your personal brand, you should be posting probably at a minimum at least a couple times a week on all your platforms. Something like Twitter that comes and goes so quickly, you're going to need to do more than that. If you have a business page on Facebook, did you all know that when you get likes on your Facebook business page, every time you post to your page, only 6 to 10% of your fan base will see that post? That usually surprises a lot of people too. Part of it's because of when people are online, and part of it's because Facebook, now that they're public, is trying to make money, and so they only show to a certain percentage, and if you want to reach more of your fan base, they make you pay to do it. So you've got to be out there a fair amount and or be willing to pay in some cases to get your message seen more often. It's usually easier on the pocketbook if you post more often, at least to begin with. Blogging, the benefit of sharing bigger thoughts, we've already talked about that a little bit. Social media, use your own thoughts, give your own opinions on things, become a thought leader. Retweet, repost, share the thoughts of others. I share on my LinkedIn and on my Facebook for my business lots of other people's posts, and to say, hey, I read tons of stuff. And it's like, you know, some stuff I want to write and share myself, but there's no way I could write that prolifically. So I just share stuff that's really good and say, hey, read this post by John Loomer, and he's got some great stuff about how to advertise on Facebook. Get great bang for your buck. Share links to your own blog posts, of course, is a given as well. So lots of things you can do. You don't always having to be coming up with original content. Share some content you found elsewhere. And then being willing to pay it forward. This one just really relates to the fact that it's not all about you. It sounds weird because you're branding yourself, but you'll go a lot farther in branding yourself if you make it, one, easy for people to engage with you, and two, if you're proactive and reach out to others you want to engage with, and then if you're willing to share their content. I've picked up quite a few followers from my clients by going in and interacting with folks that they want to interact with, and then they return the favor and come back and interact with my clients. Now I'm trying to do the same thing on my own page. Imagine that. Put somebody else in the spotlight and they're likely going to do the same thing for you. I found that to be true many, many times. So that's always a good thing to do. Take the focus off yourself, be good to other people, again, stay relevant in all those things, and it comes back and puts you in even a better light because of the things you've done to pay it forward and help them out. So it does come back around to personal branding. Then I wanted to throw out just a couple of other ideas for you too. If you're looking to build credibility, those of you that are looking to gain an expert status or an authority status, one thing you might consider doing is doing some lead generation tools. You can do this on your website or blog. You can also do it right within Facebook. You can put in a little app for MailChimp or one of the other tools that will let you develop a mailing list, and you can actually go in and say, hey, I've got a great white paper for you to download on the 10 things you must know about LinkedIn if you're job hunting. And in exchange for getting that white paper or their free report or whatever they call it, you give up your email address, usually at a minimum. That's a great way to build up an email list of people then you can follow up with over time. I've got a sleep physician I work with. Can you imagine anything more boring than working for a sleep physician? Kind of puts you to sleep, no pun intended. But we actually did a pretty cool post on Facebook that was highly, highly targeted to people that have type 2 diabetes or know people that do. And we were able to identify in Facebook, so we're tying into number 2 here, the fact that these people already had type 2 diabetes in their Facebook profiles, or had liked a type 2 diabetes type page, or the American Diabetes Association, etc. And whatever it was they did, we targeted those people and then wrote a white paper and said, if you have type 2 diabetes, you have a much higher propensity for developing sleep apnea. And here's our white paper on what it is you need to know. You know, we have purchased those ads very inexpensively. We've been running for about 4 months now, and we're getting every single day downloads of that free white paper. It's just working like a charm. And it's developing leads that then he can follow up with. Austin, feel free to take off. I know you have to leave. Please, that's just fine. And so I just wanted to throw out a couple of ideas, because you don't even need to have necessarily a website or a blog. Many of these things you can do with just a Facebook page, which is another reason. It's a page, though, not a free profile. You have to have a business page to do this. So you might want to brand yourself as the expert, the authority, the public figure, whatever you would want to use in categorizing how you set yourself up as a page. But that would give you the latitude to do a lot of things on Facebook that you can't when you just have a personal profile. And they have incredible targeting capabilities. Those of you that know marketing in here, you can slice and dice and find out who had babies within the last month, who got engaged and has been engaged 1 month or less, who has been, any of you women in here changed ever your Facebook profile? Well, some of you men might too. But women especially, if they change their relationship status on Facebook, instantly all the little right column ads change. You're in a relationship, you're seeing whatever you might be seeing, all of a sudden you change your relationship to single and you start getting ads from Match.com. You change it to engaged and it's all about ordering wedding dresses. I mean, it's just really interesting how they target. As a marketer, it's brilliant. As an individual person, it's a little creepy. I'll be real honest, but as a marketer, I love it. They have some fabulous tools to allow you to slice and dice and highly segment at fairly low cost. Yes?
I have a related question about managing pages. I've noticed that since Facebook got more heavily into this advertising piece, when I post something on pages for organizations that I manage, nobody sees it because you have to click that boost your post and pay money in order for anybody to see what you're doing. So like 9 people will see when I post something about the Entrepreneurship Club. So it's very frustrating, and I'm wondering if you know any workarounds?
There isn't a workaround other than this. The more that you get engagement going on your posts, the more Facebook will reward you. They're never going to take you up and say, wow, we're going to start showing you to 100% of your audience. We wish that was the case. It's not going to happen. However, if you have good engagement on your posts, so if you have people liking your posts, commenting, sharing, those are all considered engagement. The more you have those things happening on your posts, the more they will show them over and above what the average on Facebook is. So I have a couple of pages. Now granted, these are kind of passion niches where people are really rabid about things they like. But where I'm getting my pages shown on average to about 25% rather than the typical 8 to 10, 6 to 10. That's a pretty huge difference. But if I really do want to hit my whole audience with a post that I feel is really, really important, it takes more explanation than what I can give you right now, but if you want to contact me after, I can walk you through how to do this. I don't use the boost feature in Facebook, because what that will do is it will show it to about 10% more of your fans and then a whole bunch of their friends. That doesn't do you most good in most cases. However, there is a way in Facebook you can go in and say, I want to take this post I just put out that only reached 9 people, and I want to pay to have it reach the rest of my fan base. You can go in, there's a way you can go in and say, I want to reach only my own fan base. And it's not very expensive to do that. So selectively, I will do that with some posts. If I feel they're important enough, I will use that feature, and it's pretty inexpensive to do that. Yeah?
I notice when I'm on Facebook, other things that I like will ask me to say, to click on that drop down where it says show in newsfeed all the time. How does that upgrade?
You know, it definitely has affected the ability for people to see your ads if you're running a Facebook page like she's just talking about. Because as more people have control over what they see in their news feed, I mean, how many people do you know that will say, yeah, please show me lots more ads? Most people just say, no, not interested in that. That's another reason you're not going to get shown in everybody's newsfeed. It depends on how they have their settings. However, there's a lot of people that are quite open about that. It definitely has affected it, but it will also, there are some workarounds there, and again, it totally depends on the settings. But Facebook, many times, if you pay for an ad to be shown, will show it, whereas if you're not paying for the ad to show, your regular newsfeed ad won't ever hit that person. So if they haven't engaged in something for a while, and I'm guilty of this, I'm a Facebook browser. I rarely go on, even if my friends, stuff will come through, I'm looking at it, I'm laughing at it, I'm reading it. I'm not one that clicks and writes LMAO. I just don't. But a lot of people do. Those people will get more in their news feeds because they're interacting. Me, because I'm not very interactive on a personal level in Facebook, I don't tend to get shown nearly as much stuff unless people are paying to have it shown, because I'm just not very interactive. So it's kind of a two-way street. It's frustrating as a marketer, though, to not have your stuff get shown. Yeah, they like my page and I can't even get people to see it. What's up with that? So, yeah.
Aside from the status update, are there marketing algorithms in Facebook for specific regions or socioeconomic status? Or
Yes, tons. Not so much socioeconomic status. That's the one that seems to be missing right now. But they have just about everything else. I mean, you can identify empty nesters, college-educated, positions held in companies. So like, let's say you're in downtown. I just had this question asked of me the other day. I'm in downtown Minneapolis, and I want to reach big businesses in downtown Minneapolis. I want to attract managers from those businesses. We were able to go into Facebook and find about 5,000 people that fit that profile. If you concentrated on downtown Minneapolis in a radius of about 10 miles, I think, around or something. It was amazing how precisely you could target in Facebook. You can target U of M alums. You can target people that are still attending colleges and universities. You can target people that bought their last car over 5 years ago. I mean, the list just goes on. The one I do see that's missing, though, is there's nothing in there yet about household income. But just about everything else. I think the key for that is they try to keep a certain amount of that private, but yet so much of that stuff I would consider not to be the best stuff to share either. That I'm not really sure why they don't put in, because no one's identified by name. All you're doing is advertising to a list of no names. You don't have their Facebook profiles to go look at unless they like your page. Then, of course, you can connect with them that way. Yeah?
What's the I don't know what the word is, clickage rate on those advertisements through?
Oh, the click-through rate? The average on the little right-hand column ads, the one that are off to the side every time you go on your Facebook personal page, that's really, really low. The average click-through rate on that is 0.05. Not very good. However, if you write a really good targeted ad and you do good targeting of it, I've had those ads that have gotten to 2 to 3% click-through from time to time. It's rare to get them higher than that because they're just kind of a wallpaper ad off to the side. The newsfeed ads that actually show up in your newsfeed, an average click-through rate on those is about 1%. But again, if you've got a real good one, I've seen those go as high as 10%, and I usually strive for 3 to 4, or I don't consider I've done my job very well. Totally depends, and you have to experiment to get there, but those are some good averages on click-through to get you going. I wanted to leave you, and I will still answer questions for a few minutes. I have to go shortly because I'm teaching a class at the School of Extended and Lifelong Learning across campus here in a few minutes. But my website, my personal website, impactonlinemarketing.com, you can contact me there on the contact page. I also have on the resources page, if you click, I'm able to see it right there in the tab. I have put up a guide on how to use LinkedIn for developing leads, which I consider job hunting too. So if any of you would like to go in and download that guide, you can certainly do that. So just wanted to leave you with those. You're more than welcome to do that if you'd like. And if anybody here has reason for contacting after the fact to answer something I can't get to or something beyond the scope of what we could discuss today, by all means do, and I'll certainly do my best to help you out. Do you have any other questions?
How do you learn other online tutorials on how to use Facebook ad?
You know, the very best resource I have found on Facebook advertising is actually a blog. And the name of the blog is johnloomer.com. And I think it is spelled John, J-O-N, if I remember correctly, Loomer, L-O-O-M-E-R. If that doesn't get you to his blog, just type in John Loomer Facebook ads blog and it should come up. But he is excellent. I've got far better information from him than from Facebook's own tutorials. And he stays on top of it and he tests day in and day out. And he's been kind of my mentor in learning Facebook ads, and he's exceptional. And most of his stuff is free, although he does offer some paid courses to kind of bring you up to speed. If you really want to get into Facebook advertising, you can learn more by taking some of his courses online too. But great resource, so I would encourage that one.
If anybody else has a question, please shoot. Do you know Pecora? Have you heard of it's a crawling software that crawls Pinterest based on pictures?
Yeah, and what is it? I'm sorry, what did you say?
It used to be called Pinfluencer.
Oh, no, I'm not familiar with that one. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm sure there is such a thing. I'm not a heavy Pinterest user myself, and I don't specialize in Pinterest. I'm more of a Facebook, LinkedIn expert. Twitter I use, but Pinterest I hardly ever use anymore. I've just found that it's become so niche-oriented, it's not a good fit for most of my clients, and so I just haven't followed up with it, so I haven't spent as much time staying up with that one as some of the others. Well, thank you guys. I'm going to have to bolt so I don't leave my students stranded over there. We had a bigger group turnout than we needed last week, or than we expected last week, so they're supposed to be changing my room, and I hope that they did. But thank you so much for giving up your time to come out and spend time with me and hear what I had to say, and hope you found some value. And please don't hesitate to follow up with a contact if there's anything I can help you with, okay?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.